as
Mhm.
I recognize the youth of today, the power that they have. I have a belief that this is a generation that will change the world for the
Wow.
better in a way that many of us have been speaking to and dreaming of.
Yeah.
I just give them the tools at their disposal, give them their awareness.
Welcome to Success Talks, the podcast. This is the podcast where we dive deep into our guests' minds to get all of their hints, tips, and secrets of how they attain and maintain success at the highest level. Welcome to the podcast. Today on Success Talks, we are joined by a living legend. He is a current on-air sports analyst and commentator for ESPN Inc. He is also a Howard University alumni, having graduated cum laude. In earning his Howard degrees, he played soccer professionally for Trinidad and Tobago, Reading FC, Newcastle, West Ham, Portsmouth, and FC Dallas. And he's also the founding member and honorary president of a anti-racism organization, Show Racism the Red Card. Join me in welcoming to the podcast Neil Shaka Hislop.
Thank you very much, Nairan. Good to be here.
Yes, you're welcome. For those who don't know Shaka Hislop, can you give us a brief history of yourself up to this point?
I don't know where to start. I'm a son of the soil. Though I was born in England, I left there when I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
Both my parents are from Trinidad. My dad was completing his law degree in England.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was born there, and on finishing his degree, moved back to Trinidad. As I say, I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
Grew up in Diego Martin. Played football all my life. St. Mary's College. A past student, went on to earn my first university degree at Howard after leaving St. Mary's College. Played professional football, earned another degree. Currently work for ESPN and ESPN FC, the show. Um, Proudly married for 26 years now, 5 children, my wife and I. My wife is also from Trinidad.
Wow.
Um, and that's it in as tight a nutshell as I can get it.
Yes, fantastic. Let's talk a bit about focus and commitment because in preparing for our session today, I was definitely in a state of fascination and really, I really feel proud because when I saw the time you played professionally for and how you was able to acquire your academics at that point,
Mm.
can you talk to me a bit about how you was able to keep focus and keep committed in a very high pressure and demanding situation because it will be very tough on you every day, physically or mentally. Can you talk to us a bit about focus and commitment?
Certainly. Well, first of all, in terms of balancing my academics and athletics, it's something that my father always preached. You know, my father grew up playing sport himself. He was a black belt in judo. He
Yeah.
represented Trinidad and Tobago at cricket. He was also at one point the Caribbean record holder at high jump. And as
Mhm.
I mentioned earlier, also went on to earn a law degree. Before earning his own law degree, he was a teacher at Loughborough University in the United Kingdom.
Wow.
So his ability to balance athletics and academics was part of his DNA, and I guess by default I had to make it a part of mine, and it's something that
Mhm.
he preached heavily to my brothers and me. Um, and that has always been so that was always kind of back of my mind, making sure I found that balance. Well, what that did, it gave me a certain discipline around time and time management. um so it was, I wish I could say, it was something that I worked at per se, or it's just something that you figure out, and then you make the way, you make the time. um it served me well later in life as a professional footballer. You have a lot of time on your hands. You know, you're on the training ground for, you know, a couple hours a day. You might be in the gym for another hour. And you know, the rest of your time you're at your disposal, you know, and how you manage that time kind of dictates how far you go in the game, how long you stay in the game. So while, you know, I had a lot more time as turning fully professional, managing that time, I had been doing, you know, since I was a young boy, you know. So thankfully that translated into, as you mentioned, now in a 15-year career. For me, it was always about, in playing professional football, it was about testing myself against the best. You know, I wanted to see how good I could make myself. I wanted to see how well I could compete against the others. It was about matching my own skills, my own talents with some of the best, and that's where I always found my focus. I always found my motivation.
This episode is sponsored by one of the leading nail technicians in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, Polish Club by JODZZ. They specialize in manicure, pedicure, and all your nail services. For more information about their services, please contact them at 389-5106 or contact them by the Instagram handle PolishClub_by JODZZ for more information about their services. Okay, fantastic. Because the reason I asked that, because I think where we are failing as a society is in the focus department, because too often, you know, person maybe at maybe male or female or varying age brackets, they will have tons of enthusiasm at the start of whatever they decide to do. But when the time for focus and commitment is called upon, you know, you will see it start to wither away. So I said that, you know, we have to include that question, and I feel really pleased how you know, answered it. I want to dive a lot deeper into the podcast at this moment. In your current role as a commentator and as a sports analyst, you are sort of speaking to and speaking for a global organization for global athletes and on global athletes. What are some of the areas in your profession you are most curious about, or as they say locally in Trinidad, you know, that really keep me up at night?
Oh, let me see what keeps me up at night. Certainly as far as what I do for ESPN, not a lot keeps me up at night. I'll be honest with you. When I'm on air, when I'm on the ESPN FC set, I'm trying to represent who I am. And I've never lost sight of my upbringing. I've never lost sight of Trinidad and Tobago and all that is given to me. I've never lost sight of what the sport means to us as a people. And I try to reflect that both in my playing career and now in my post-professional career as an analyst. You know, while it's easy to get caught up in the swell of the European influence and impact on the game today, the game means no less to us in Trinidad and Tobago, despite our size. We have a role to play. We have a presence, and we have an opinion around the game, and I try to represent that. I try to represent what it means to be Black, to be growing up in the game, to come from a small country where people maybe don't give you the kind of respect or credit that you deserve, and how you can still use that in chasing a dream. That's who I try to be. I did not grow up in Europe. I did not come through the professional club academies. The expectation that I'd play professional one day was never a part of who I was until I graduated university. And I think that's reflective of most people around the world. Maybe outside of Europe, but most people around the world nonetheless. And that's what I try to represent. Those dreams of people who who would love to be able to play professional football, who love the game, but may not necessarily see that path or see their own opinions represented.
It's so great that you mentioned in regards to, not demanding the respect, but the respect should be given to me, not because I'm from a different island or my skin color is different. What is it like interacting with top athletes throughout these sports and maybe past or present athletes?
It's I enjoy the experience because in a lot of ways I've grown up seeing some of these athletes, idolizing a lot of them, and then becoming friends with them over the years. And that for me was a surreal experience. I still remember to this day being in a player's bar and seeing Viv Anderson leave a conversation that he was having to come over and say hello to me and speak to me. And that for me, I think that I remember that so well because I remember Viv Anderson growing up and idolizing Viv Anderson as a Black player who pulled on the England shirt, and I knew what he meant to me as a young Black man, half a world away. And I was standing there in the same, I think it was a bar, I can't remember exactly where, and just in awe. And that kind of said to me that, yeah, I deserve to be where I am. I deserve to be in these spaces. I have earned that right through my work on the field and my work off it with Show Racism the Red Card. And over the years, I've grown to be a friend to many of them. Many of them work with our campaign, and that for me, it never gets old. I'm still in awe in so many respects. Over the last 18 months, with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement post the George Floyd murder, I've been doing a lot more with Show Racism the Red Card, and by virtue of these Zoom meetings that we're having right now. And I've had the opportunity to interact with so many people, from Viv Anderson, as I mentioned, to Alex Williams, who's the first Black goalkeeper, played for Manchester City back when I was growing up, to Luther Blissett most recently. I've had conversations with former teammates such as Les Ferdinand, Chris Powell, Gareth Southgate, and I recognize and while I'm still in awe of them in so many ways, I recognize that I also see myself as one of their peers. So it's a strange balancing act for me in that I am I am in awe and so kind of taken aback in sharing spaces with these young men and in many instances young women that I admire from afar. But at the same time, I also recognize that I'm one of their peers.
Don't mean to be biased. Can you identify one or two of those persons that is or was most fun interacting with?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me see. I don't know if I could identify one or two because everybody had such different impacts on me. Alex Williams, as a Black goalkeeper, I playing at the highest level in English football, which I never saw growing up. Gareth Southgate, who I think represents England and the best of football management at that level so well. He was also really good to speak with. I played against Gareth Southgate back in our days, so we competed against each other. I've never been a teammate of his, but hearing him speak now and speak of the issues around racism in sport, his role as a manager for a team like England, his role as a white man, I think is one that probably over the last 12 months was most impactful to me, just because it's such a different dynamic than than my own lived experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And to see him advocating for equality the way that he is, I think it really struck me. But that's not to discount the other conversations I had. Many of the names that I mentioned,
Yeah.
they just, you know, for different reasons, you know, again, so many of them I idolized growing up, and now recognizing the role that they played in my becoming a professional footballer and my own responsibility to deliver on the work that they did when they were when they were professionals themselves.
Okay. So we have Shaka Hislop, the past Trinidad and Tobago uh, footballer, World Cup hero, Newcastle, West Ham, and presently sports analyst and commentator for ESPN. But what are some of the things outside of the professional realm persons may not know about Shaka Hislop?
That's a difficult question because I'm not sure. You know, I've lived so much of my life in the public eye, and these things that I want to keep private, I keep private for a reason. You know, I think there's certain aspects of who we are, regardless, that you know, remain private. So that being said, probably one thing that many people may not know, and I don't mind sharing, certainly now, I've started cooking a lot. That's become a favorite pastime of mine. My family is they're still all alive and still growing. I'm happy to report. So at least that hasn't had any adverse effects on them. But it's something I really enjoy nowadays, and it's a nice escape from what has become my day to day.
Okay. With living most of your life in the public eye, from on the field to now off of the field, does Shaka Hislop have any non-negotiables? When he said he's going to do something, you know, no matter what, I'm going to get it done, maybe in snow or maybe in rain, you know, along that lines.
I don't know. I don't know. Listen, I have the same kind of self-doubt that many people do, and own mental challenges and blocks to getting things done, you know, and at times it takes a support network, and I'm really fortunate and blessed to have the family that I do, and the support that they afford me every single day in some of the things that I try to do. I also, and why I'm hesitant to say, you know, I think it's inspiring, if not cliched, to say, you know, when I put my mind to something, I get it done. The truth is that's not true. You know, I feel more times than I succeed. You know, I've learned to accept. I've learned to build on that failure.
Yeah.
So, you know, while, you know, again, it's not about, you know, I'm not one of those that I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, everything I put my mind to, I get it done regardless. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I've learned to find the lessons in failure and build on them. And I think that's key. And give them something that, you know, you said earlier about how we in Trinidad and Tobago struggle societally around chasing some of those dreams, around chasing success. I'm also mindful of the name of your podcast and Success Talks.
Yes.
I often say success is something that we dream about, but oftentimes aren't prepared for. Wow. Success is something that I firmly believe we have to be prepared for, because we chase a dream, and then if we come close, if we recognize it, if we come close, we're not sure how to handle it. We're not sure how to handle that success. I think that is something that while we dream about what success looks like and what it may mean and what it may bring to us in terms of whether it is, you know, happiness, whether it's fortune, whether it's just peace, we have to know what we want to do with that peace, with that happiness.
Wow.
And too many times I think we find ourselves in those positions, not knowing what next, not knowing what we're going to do with this thing that we've been chasing for so long.
Wow, that is so amazing. With everything on a whole, maybe from technology to human life, to the game or games within sports is changing so rapidly. And you are at the forefront of it. How does you continue to learn, to improve, to, you know, always remain at that cutting edge of things?
I'll try to stay outside of my comfort zone, or try to be outside of my comfort zone as much as I can. You know, I'm not afraid of failure. I you know, I go back to the previous answer. I am not at all afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And that for me has been key. That I'm prepared to put myself out of my comfort zone. Sometimes it takes some encouragement. I mentioned my support network around me, and they have played a huge role in this for me as well. How do I challenge myself? You know, when I started at ESPN, I'm an ONAIR analyst, talking about the game, a game that I lived for 15 years. But I went back to Howard University and did a master's degree. I did an executive MBA. Not that a master's of business administration would have anything to do with what I was doing and what I was thoroughly enjoying, but I felt that it was something that would that I would benefit from, that would add to you know, my own kind of knowledge base, and who knows how that will work out and where that will take me. So that's just how I've always tried to. I don't want to stay ahead, because I'm not really sure what I'm staying ahead of, but I've always tried to see where I can improve, how I can find the best version of myself.
Yes, correct.
And how I can what I can do to improve that.
Yeah. And when that new knowledge is gained, how you think it will be best utilized in regards to facing or eradicating one of the global issues we may face?
I don't know, and that's the thing. A lot of times, you know, you do these things without really knowing why or what's the end game. You know, I you know, right at the top, I spoke about the balance of my athletics and academics. And then all of a sudden I retire, and I get a call from an ESPN producer saying that he's seen a number of my interviews, and he's always been fascinated by how I articulate my answers around the game. Now that leans into my education. Now, you know, graduating from Howard University, and I proudly boast, I graduated third in my mechanical engineering class, but I never worked a day in engineering. But you know, having that degree, having that degree, and be able to shape my answers, albeit around football, you know, leads to me working for ESPN some 15 and a half years after I graduated. You know, who knew? You know, and similarly, I just mentioned my MBA. Who knows where that will lead, and what doors that may eventually open. You know, so it's difficult to say what are the issues that, you know, my learnings now, or being out of my comfort zone, addresses. I also you know, recognize the role that my education has played, how I articulate my answers, how that's played a part in Show Racism the Red Card, my involvement, the growth of the campaign, and the continued role I play with the organization, and some of the other things that I am slowly getting myself involved in.
Wow. As the name rightfully identify, the program Success Talks, and it's fair to say you are a successful person in your own right, and you have achieved a lot of stuff that only some could dream of, and also you earn it rightfully. So I want to ask right away, how do you define and measure success with your accolades that you achieve over your playing career or nationally, or as you said, with regards to ESPN?
Well, I'll insert a shameless plug here. I did a TED talk about this at the beginning of the pandemic, about this time last year, actually, September, October of last year, and just talking about success. Success is something that only you can define, and as I, again, shameless plug, as I said in the talk, success is something that you get to define, and then you get to redefine and redefine again as often as you like. And success means very different things for very different people. You know, I'll use my own family as an example. My wife successfully raised 5 children in a way that you know, how do I measure that against what I have been able to do with my own career? I sit here and I look at my kids, and I'm immensely proud of my family. I'm more proud of my family and my children than anything I have done. How do you measure both of those against each other? That is something that each person, each individual has to define. And in our case, in the case of a family unit as we have, we each have our roles to play, and we try to do those as best we can, as successfully as we can. So that, you know, again, just to go back to the initial question, I cannot define success for someone else. Okay. That other person has to be there. The only thing I will ask is to be honest with yourself about your hopes, your dreams, your abilities, and how and pushing yourself outside of your own comfort zone and chasing what you determine is your success.
Wow. I am very, very, very lift up as you continuously mention to push yourself out of the comfort zone, And right at the back end of that, I want to ask, with working in a global network, what are some of the challenges you will incur, and how do you overcome them?
The challenges working with an organization such as ESPN, one is you have to balance so many different interests all at the same time. Listen, ESPN is a global organization. You are speaking to an audience that may not understand my own history, my own upbringing, the culture around Trinidad and Tobago, the culture around our sport. From a corporate perspective, there's also a balancing act between what we do and what we say on air. We're also a business, and you know, you have those financial and corporate concerns around that. As a Black person, I also have to represent, and that's been highlighted over the last year or 18 months. I also have to represent our concerns, our fears, our hopes, our wants as a people to that global audience in a way that maybe gets them to respond. So it's a bunch of different interests that you have to balance, but at the same time, never lose sight of who you are.
With the insight and the knowledge you have gained over the years as a player and now as an analyst, and also being the honorary president of one of a global issue that we face for decades or centuries. For someone who are pursuing the pathway such as you, what advice you will say you can give them that they can use, aware of all the challenges that they may face on that pursuit?
I think, first of all, start small. Start with issues that you are passionate about, that you can speak to.
Yeah.
Being involved with Show Recently Red Card was easy for me because this is my life.
Yes.
You know, representing being Black,
yeah,
and understanding the challenges around being Black is who I have always been.
Yeah.
And I've always look at the small things, look at the small steps you take first. And I never thought, when we started Show Recently Red Card back in 1996, I never thought I'd be sitting here 25 years later talking about the UK's largest anti-racism educational charity. I never thought I'd be talking about 850,000 children going through a day's workshop with us, so over 25 years. I never thought I'd be talking about the impacts we've had with teachers unions and associations, and some of the political milestones that we've been able to recognize. I was going to schools. When we started in 1996, it started with me, usually with a teammate, going to schools, just talking about our own experiences, what I may have learned from a white teammate or a Black teammate who grew up in London or some other part of the world, and sharing those experiences, and how we make it so many different cultures and nationalities work as a team, and what that says to us as human beings, and what's our greatest calling. And that's all we were doing, going into schools, talking to kids. And some 25 years later, it has become this. We were doing what we felt was right for us, what we felt was right for our community. And we were doing it one step at a time. I don't think you need to look much past that.
Yeah.
If you have right on your side, you have all the wind in your sails that you need.
Yeah, that is so amazing, because I think it's needed now more than before, because back then maybe the racial slurs or the racial messages would have been transmitted more on an in-person business, but we're in the stage of technology where someone can be 1,000 miles away and, you know, say what I have to say. So I truly appreciate that the stance that you are taking and continue to take on a very global level. And I wish more can join, because we understand that there are strength in numbers in anything that we do. And but not everyone have, let's say, the know-it-all or the where-it-all or the guts, you know, to really stand firm in regards to whatever backlash may come. But as you said, you are representing who you are, you know, unapologetically. And on your pursuit of self-aware, can you identify some of the persons who would have instilled that in you, or we will say mentors?
Certainly. First of all, I have a friend network that has always been close to me, has always supported me, has always inspired me in so many ways. Yeah. You know, many of the guys that I went to school with came from very humble beginnings. Most of the people I'm still closest with from my university days are all from Trinidad and Tobago, and have incredible stories to tell. Yeah. As does my dad. You know, I spoke about my dad going to law school in England, but he left Trinidad and Tobago as part of what is now known, certainly in England, as the Windrush generation, in pursuit of employment, became a teacher, was wrongfully arrested, sued the Metropolitan Police, won, and with the winnings from that lawsuit, he put himself through law school. He went back to Trinidad and Tobago for 6 weeks, just before starting law school, where he met and proposed to my mother during a 6-week break. You know, so I always tell that story because while I recognize the role I played, which I recently red card at the very least, I think it pales in comparison to a young man from Trinidad and Tobago in 1960s England, suing the Metropolitan Police. How he was able to, despite being wrongfully arrested by law enforcement, he became a part of the solution by inserting himself as part of that legal of that legal profession. Right? He wasn't a police officer. He became a lawyer, and then became a magistrate and senior magistrate in Trinidad and Tobago. Wow. So he made himself a part of the solution. And then finally, just I spoke about this before, my family around me, how they've supported my dreams, how they've picked me up and dusted me off when the times that I've stumbled. Those are the things that have kept me going. Those are the reasons that I've been able to recognize some of the successes that I have and overcome the multitude of failures that I've also faced.
Yeah. As you mentioned your dad and your family as your mentors, and they still are your mentors, and they guide you and they support you. But we at Success Talks want to know what keep Shaka motivated, what keep keep on want to break down that door to keep achieving, because persons will achieve far less, maybe on what pursuit, and they will put their hands up in the air. But the reason why I'm asking that question, to know, as you said, and for persons to understand that they are always another level, but you can always push the barrier further.
Certainly. I think that answer is twofold. One of the things that keeps me going is I genuinely am trying to discover the best version of myself. Yeah. And of course that changes over time, just from a physical perspective. There are things that I can't do now that I could once, but now how can I address that? Or, how can I find some kind of a balance? Whether it's in academics, whether it's business, whether it's what I do for Espn, how can I continue to have the impact that I have, or grow the impact that I have? I genuinely am trying to find the best version of myself, and that's a part of my motivation. What has become a bigger part of my motivation, particularly over recent years, as my kids have grown older, is I need to be an example to them. As I recognize the youth of today, the power that they have. I have a belief that this is a generation that will change the world for the better in a way that many of us have been speaking to and dreaming of. Yeah. I just give them the tools at their disposal, give them their awareness. I recognize an awareness in my kids now that I did not have at their age. Yeah. Whether I'm talking about my eldest, who's now 25, down to my youngest, who's now 14. I did not have an awareness around personal issues, around who I am as a Black person in this world, around global issues. I didn't have it. I recognize that. How can I be an example to them? Yeah. How can I show them that I'm still trying to discover the best version of myself, that I have some of the same kind of confidence issues and self-doubt at times. But I want to say to them, it's okay to have that. It's not okay to let it stop you. Yeah. You can slow down. but don't let it stop you.
Yeah.
I want them to see that, to see that it's part of the human condition, but it's a part of a greater calling to keep going, to keep moving. So those are the things that keep me going, that keep me doing as I do.
Yeah. So often, the wider public will put persons like yourself and some of your co-hosts or some of your past teammates, on a pedestal where they remove the human from you all. And as you mentioned, you will still have nerves and self-doubts and all these different things, which is part of human nature. Can you share with us what are some of the things most people misunderstand or take for granted with being a host on a global network?
Well, one of the things that I think people, well, from just the kind of simple or superficial, is that we have some inside knowledge on everything. I remember having a discussion with somebody a couple of weeks ago about Ronaldo's future, and him saying that I knew exactly what was happening. No, I don't. I'm figuring this out just like everybody else, reading it in the press, just like everybody else. So some of the journalists have better insights, but a lot of that is closely guarded, closely guarded secret. So it goes from the superficial, as I say, as to what we know, how much we know, and what we're exposed to just. Like I say, I just say this, despite some of us being on air and people seemingly putting us on a pedestal, as you put it, we all are dealing with some very human issues, just like everybody else. We still trying to be the best fathers or parents that we can be. We still, trying to balance work and relationships. We still trying to figure out, paying bills at the end of the month, and how we manage those things. Putting food on the table, and how we do that. Those are issues that we all deal with, and we all I'll go so far as to say at times we all struggle with. But we also know that we have a role and responsibility to play, not just to the company, but to the football-loving public, because in many regards, what we do is a welcome escape from everybody else's day-to-day, and we have to represent that as well. So we have to put aside some of our own concerns, our own challenges, in representing that.
Yeah. Shaka Hislop is in his 50s now. I don't want to call the exact age, right? Right. But if he was to give his 16-year-old self any advice, what will it be?
Let me see. That's a very good question. If I was speaking to my 16-year-old self, I'd probably say those nerves, that awkwardness you feel about yourself and who you are, is normal. And despite other people around you, your peers, own bravado and seeming confidence, they're having some of those same doubts that you are. And ultimately, the things that seem to matter to you as a 16-year-old are superficial and don't. Just be true to yourself, and don't try to disguise it. Don't try to apologize for it. Live it. Live your truth. And I think there's real power in living that truth.
Wow. We are the part of Success Talks where we identify 8 questions as quick fire questions, which is the fun part of the podcast. You have 3 seconds to answer each of these questions. Are you ready?
All right. I'm glad you defined what quick fire is, because as you probably realize by now, I can talk. I talk a lot. So go ahead. 3 seconds with each question. I'll try. I can't guarantee I'm going to answer these things in 3 seconds, but go ahead.
No problem. Where was one of the worst places you ever get stuck?
Worst places I ever get stuck. I don't know. I can't think of that at all. I'll have to come back to that.
We'll come back to that one.
All right.
What meal can Shaka Hislop eat every day of the week?
Anything from Trinidad and Tobago. I could eat roti all day, every day. I could eat callaloo all day, every day. Oil down all day, every day, without any hesitation. I also like jerk chicken a lot.
Wow.
So yeah. Take a choice.
If you was to have a movie made on your life, what type of movie you would have liked it to be, and what role you would have liked to play in that movie?
It would be an easy, let me say, the genre would be an easy, light-hearted comedy. I say that because I've just thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the things that I've done, and I've been able to find humor in myself and some of my own feelings. So I have no problem laughing with myself.
Yeah.
What role would I like to play in my own movie? I don't know. I just like to be a spectator and see how people who haven't shared that journey, how they see me, and how they see some of my own successes and failures.
On the ESPN program, Press Pass, we will look at it, and we will see the jovial and the light personality you have, and how easygoing you are. So it was very fair of us to include how cool you are on a scale of 1 to 10. How cool is Shaka?
I'm not the person to answer this. I would say 10. My kids would probably say 1. So I am not the person. I'm not the person to answer that question. I think I'm cool. Yeah, but my kids.
But if you was to give let's say a number that persons will agree with, what would you say?
I don't. 7. Let's go with 7.
A 7.
I think 7 is just middle of the scale enough.
And those at ESPN and like Burley and those guys will agree on that 7?
I don't know. I don't know. They'd probably go with 1 as well.
Wow. If you were not doing the job that you are doing now, what is fair to say that Shaka Hislop will be doing at this moment?
My dream job, I don't know what I'd be doing. Well, I probably would be a mechanical engineer in some capacity, given that that was my university degree. But my dream job was to design cars. I love cars. I absolutely love cars, and which is why I did mechanical engineering, because my dream job was to design a car. And I've been taking every opportunity to say of late that if, and you mentioned my age 50s, I will say unashamedly, in February I'll be 53. If at some point you see me driving a flashy red sports car, it's not because I'm going through some kind of midlife crisis. It's because I've always just genuinely loved cars. I really have. And if I had all the money in the world, I would drive every car in the world.
Wow.
I would. I love cars. I really, really, really do. I really do.
Yeah. Everyone know Shaka Hislop, past Premier League player, with present on air, sports analyst, commentator. But what secret skills and talent that you possess that is not known to the public?
Well, I just gave away my only. I don't know if it's a skill. I don't know if it's a talent, but I cook a lot. I cook. Other than that, I don't have many talents to speak of. I really don't.
Okay, great. What is the name of your favorite song?
Ooh, I don't know. That is a moving scale right there. I don't know what to say about favorite song. That changes. I don't know. I really don't.
But like, if you was to click onto your iPad or whatever device, what you will skip through to?
But, you see, that is so dependent on mood.
Oh.
You know, when I live up in Massachusetts now, which gets very cold in the winter. But when it's hot outside, I love. I listen to soca all year round, but especially when it's hot outside because it makes me feel at home. When it's hot outside and soca music played, it makes me feel at home. But that as I say, that changes. That changes on depending on so many different factors.
Okay, that was a good answer because I was about to ask you to sing a line from that song.
No, yeah. Thank goodness, because
I
definitely don't have that talent.
Can Shaka Hislop describe himself in 3 words?
Laid back. I'm gonna count that as one hyphenated word. Accepting. Ambitious. I don't know. I'm gonna say I am ambitious. I'll go ambitious, cautious. I'm ambitious. Let's use those 3 words: ambitious yet cautious.
Okay.
And you can interpret that however you like.
Fantastic. Well, we have came to the end of our session today on Success Talks, the podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Success Talks, the podcast. Activate your mind powers. You are unstoppable. Only you can stop you.